Hey Explorers, Christina here on a Saturday, and today I'm talking personal power. This is one of my favorite topics. I believe it to be one of the pillars of self-exploration and one of the greatest results of really going inward at moments in our life. What do I mean by personal power? In a way, it's the inability for external forces to impact you negatively, to drastically impact you. In another term, it's taking the time to build internally a base rather than looking outward externally to build your foundation of love and worthiness. When you choose someone to love, imagine that a string goes from you to that person and they now have power over you. When you join a community or take up a hobby, a string goes from you to that group of people and they then have power over you. A mentor, a teacher, a professor, someone you respect, a string goes from you to that person and they then have power over you. And what I mean by power over you is that in many cases when we make these connections and we are involved in relationships in this way, we in a sense give this kind of permission to people. What they do has a drastic impact on our state, on our well-being, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise. So, what happens when that person you love leaves you? How does that impact your sense of worthiness or love? When that community maybe begins to judge you, when people don't live up to your expectations, which they never will completely, we experience then a very acute sense of disempowerment and a sense of loss, and we are in many cases brought to our knees. So I want to bring your attention to moments like this in your life that maybe you've had or are experiencing now, as an opportunity. And if anything, for me, it is the most sometimes painful but really wonderful opportunity to go inward in a way that you haven't before. In some cases, this moment of desperation becomes one of the most beautiful moments of self-discovery. So I want to kind of talk about in that moment, when you feel like you have lost something, when you feel like someone's actions or words have left you feeling disempowered. And in many cases, even though it's a metaphor, that string, you feel it in your gut. You feel like someone has taken something from you. And in that moment, Carolyn Mace, one of the greatest minds of our time, I believe, she might say, observe yourself, observe who has authority over you. Where does your spirit go when you are not taking care of it? Who takes up real estate in your mind, she would say. So in this moment, it's really a chance for you to stop. If you're really on this journey, if you're thinking in terms of self-exploration and of knowing yourself, to rather than try to skim over it or fill it with something else, to in that moment of desperation, ask yourself deeper questions. Go further inward and ask yourself why. If that person left you, what was it you think you were getting from them that you can't give yourself? In a lot of cases, it's a sense of worthiness or affirmation or validation. What is leaving you feeling disempowered? What do you think you were getting from that external source? Oh, my phone died. Okay, so we're at the part where someone has left you, something has happened, an expectation has been dropped, you feel powerless, you feel at a loss. For me, these are the moments that bring me to my knees, and I desperately want to control those external sources. And in these moments where I have stopped and looked inward, the most extraordinary change has been possible. In those moments of really looking at yourself, you ask yourself those questions. What do I feel like I'm missing? These are the opportunities to then pause the external addiction to gaining validation from the external world and really looking at what maybe you've not paid attention to yet in your life. And it's not a criticism, it's just an opportunity. Wow, Where have I not looked in a while? Why do I not feel worthy? Why do I not feel like I love myself? Maybe this is a deeper issue that has nothing to do with that group or person or circumstance. And I also really want to be clear, in the words of Brené Brown, as humans, we are wired for connection. We are wired for belonging. And I really truly believe in the benefits of belonging and connection and building relationships. But what I'm proposing to you is that if from the start that your sense of worthiness and ability is all tied up in completely external sources, in those belonging, in those communities and connections, I challenge you on that, because I don't think that they can last or be as strong without first going inward and sustaining that within yourself, in a relationship with yourself, which is often the case of that kind of inner knowing and self-exploration. And so I really truly believe that if you go inward first and you spend that time asking yourself those questions and building, filling kind of an inner well, then you go back out into the world and make those connections in a way that is oftentimes more genuine and stronger, and you have more to give, and you don't fluctuate as easily, and you're not thrown off your game as easily. Because if someone hurts you, doesn't do what you want them to do, or makes you feel offended or out of control, you then return to your inner space, and you're not as quickly brought to your knees or made to feel less than or disempowered. So that's the topic for today. I really want to make this into a series about relationships and power, so we're going to continue this conversation, but would love to hear your thoughts on how this has shown up for you, if it's shown up for you, and again, challenge you to think about personal power in yourself and with the world around you in a different way. So until next time, tell your story, live your truth, and no one journeys alone.